smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some dizzies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz in the house. That's right, I am back and I have the incredible John Callis sitting in the back of the studio, and we're going to talk about his book tonight, When the Rain Stops. He was on Tea Time before. We talked a little bit about this book, but tonight I really want to dig deep into this book. And John is also a Golden Heart Tea. So if anybody wants to know what a Golden Heart Tea is, people who have become family to Miss Liz, who have supported Miss Liz and encouraged me. As you've seen in August, my daughter came and shared her story. So that was a Golden Heart Tea. And then we also had a mother come in and share her Golden Heart Tea. So those are the little twists that Miss Liz is doing. I'm bringing in people that have become guests, who turned into friends, who turned into family. So that's who John is to me. John is a family member in my heart now. But before we get started, we're going to get everybody over to the YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram. You guys know all those platforms. Give those a like, follow, subscribe, and get these tea times out there, because we do make a difference when we share these tea times. And I couldn't do this without all of you guys. So let's get the disclaimer going, and let's get John in here with an incredible bio, and let's get spilling some tea. And tonight's tea is, again, we do not serve a beverage. We serve bless the past, then let it go, accept life's gifts. That's John's tea that we're serving tonight. I'm not sure if John remembers what he sent me, but we're going to get into those teas tonight. So disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by the guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guest viewers and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decisions that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of this discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email, bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. I want to welcome everybody back to Tea Time, where stories heal, hearts remember, and purpose continues. Today's guest is one of those whose life's work has stitched integrity into creativity and meaning into media. Please welcome back John Callis, award-winning director, writer, producer, and mental health advocate. John's storytelling travels beyond films and into the places where healing begins. His work carries depth, honesty, and courage, reminding us that the rain does not last forever, even when the storms feel endless. John returns to the table with the heart of someone who has lived his stories and survived the chapters no one sees. His message of blessing the past and releasing what no longer serves us resonates deeply with Miss Liz's message of legacy, resilience, and transformation. So grab your cup and settle in. Today we reflect, release, and rise together. Let me get John in here. Let's spill some tea together. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Nice to be here again.
So, John, I'm going to take you down a rabbit hole and then we're going to get into the book. For all the new listeners out there that are tuning into Miss Liz now, who was John as a little guy and who's John now?
Who's John? Well, I'm a 50-year veteran in the film business with 8 award-winning productions, including an Emmy nomination. Um, at 3 years old, my dad died, which started my long, arduous path of emotional traumas and hating the world. It hated me. I gave up my religion. I just didn't care. And by the time I was 12, I was pretty much a mess. And my parents were given an ultimatum: either send me to military school or reform school. And so they sent me to military school at the age of 12 from New York City to Virginia by myself, which traumatized the hell out of me because I was scared to death. I'm 12 years old on a train going nowhere and to a place I didn't want to be. And just to set the mode properly, the first night I was there, I got knocked out 3 times. Now, granted, I did have a bit of a mouth on me, so it wasn't unjustified, but maybe somebody should have explained the rules to me so I would have understood a little bit better that you don't say certain things and all that. So it took me until 15 years old where I decided that enough's enough. And I jumped in a partially frozen lake down my life. And something just dragged me right back out. And I said, there's got to be something more to this. And that's what started the process of the alternative John. I didn't want to be the victim. I didn't want to be bullied anymore. I didn't want to be hateful. I was filled with vengeance, and I just didn't like who I was. And so I had to make a conscious choice that it's my life and I can do what I want with it. And I don't want to be miserable. And that's where it started.
So, John, your book during the time I was away, it really helped me a lot. The suicide part really hit home for me because, as many of my listeners know, I suffer with mental illness. And while I was away, suicide came into the picture. And I turned to books like yours, John, to get me out of that hole and to give me that hope of it's okay, Liz, and before we went live, I said I took the word okay out of my vocabulary. But when people ask me now if I'm okay, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm not okay. Because so many of us say we're okay and we're not, and before we went live, you gave me the word fair and rare to use instead of good, like that you use. And I think I'm going to start using those as well because everyone is fast to throw us off, right? When we say we're okay, then they leave the conversation.
Yeah.
As soon as you say okay, then the conversation stops.
Yeah.
Because they think, oh, you're fine, you're good. No, we're not good. We're not okay. So when I say good, I'm hoping someone will say, oh, she's not good. She needs some help. She needs some support here right now. So,
or what do you mean by good?
Somebody right? Can say that. Well, there's a lot of importation. I can't even speak today. There's right at the word good. There's lots of good things in life. There's a lot of good moments. Good, like you can use good in a lot of ways. John, but how did you get to that point of sharing your story? Because it takes a lot to share what you share. Because your book is deep, and I really enjoyed reading it.
Well, to get to the point that I wanted to share it, took a lot of mentors helping me to gain some confidence. Therapy, I decided I needed help because I had too many questions that I couldn't answer myself anymore. And I thought, I need some help with this. So one of the therapists said, you seem a little complicated. Why don't you just write a couple pages about what's going on in your life and past or something? And so I sent it off to him, and I walked in the next time, and he just went over. He had tears running down his face, and he hugged me. He says, I have no idea how you got this far in life. I said, well, that's reassuring. Am I getting charged for this, or can I charge you now? And so we had a good laugh, and we started talking about it. And I decided to journal for a long time. So I was just kind of writing whatever came to my mind and everything. And I saw other people really suffering. And for some reason, and this wasn't like God came down and gave me a blessing or anything, but it seemed like people were engaged talking to me, and they felt safe because I wasn't judging. I wasn't asking. I wasn't telling them how to live their lives. I wasn't trying to be their life coach because so many people have taken on that that role who have no idea what they're doing. And I just wanted to explain to people that this is how it happened for me. I don't know if it works for you, but you need to find your own path. But here's some things that you can do. And so I decided I need to really write this out because I had a lot of anger towards my mother, and I gave that up a long time ago. And I thought, how do I do that? I said, well, what if I wrote the story from the beginning as the little boy's perception? Now, we all know that the perception of a little boy is quite different than the perception of what maybe was happening at the time. And so as I was writing it, I thought, this isn't doing it for me yet, because it's making me feel like I'm telling everyone my mother was a real piece of garbage. And that's not what it was. So I decided to do two voices. I would tell about the little boy, the life of the little boy, what I was going through. And then in a gray box was the adult looking back at that moment and saying, this is what really happened, not my perception of what was happening. And so you get the duality of the adult, because I didn't want to write it from an adult perspective because it distorts what the little boy was going through. So then I started out writing it as a third character. It wasn't my memoir. And my editor and my wife both were screaming at me one night. They said, no, you got to put it to be you. I said, I don't want to do that. They said, John, nobody's going to believe this. And they're going to just think you just made up this stuff. You've got to be, you're so honest in the book. You have to tell them the truth. And I said, okay. And that was a little scary, to be honest with you. I was about to put my ass out there in a very naked way. And I said, am I prepared for that? And so one night I had this cathartic moment saying, hey, you've never been afraid of honesty. You've always spoken the truth. You've never hurt anybody intentionally, certainly. And if people in your life have taken what you've said to them and tried to use it against you, you've had enough strength to walk away and not turn around. And I thought, okay, so that's the genesis of the whole thing.
Well, that's what I really enjoyed about the book, John, was that it was real and raw.
Raw it was.
And that's how we heal through writing, is by getting that rawness in there. And it's scary, because I've shared my story as well in books, and I had to get raw. And when I read my chapter for the first time a couple weeks ago in the first book I wrote, I was just like, whoa, was it ever raw? That it re-traumatized. Do you feel like when you read your story over, do you read your story over, John?
Yes, I do, because I don't want to forget.
And does it traumatize you when you read it?
Let me put it this way. When I was writing it, my wife would come by the office and she'd see me crying my eyes out. I said, are you okay? I said, yeah. She goes, what's going on? I said, I'm being so honest that I'm actually reliving those moments, and they're really effing painful. And she goes, maybe you should take a break. I said, no, I'm so tapped into it right now. I just need to keep going. And then I would come out and I'd say, oh, wow, that was rough. And so I think it's good to go back and reread it, because it just reminds me of the path I've gone through to get to where I am. And it reassures me that it's my life, and the story I'm living is the one I chose to write.
So, John, how did you get the title for that book?
That's an interesting question. I was thinking about what my heart felt like. And I just felt like every time I turned around, there was rain pouring into my heart. And it was flushing. It was drowning me. And then one day when I was sitting on the beach, it was little drizzle, and it all of a sudden cleared up. And the sun came out. It was almost biblical. There were shafts of light. And I was writing the last poem that's in the book. And I stood up and I put my arms out. I said, when the rain stops. What a great idea. It stopped, and all the pain is leaving my heart. And that's basically how it came about.
Well, as you're talking about the book and the cover and the sunshine, I'm going to bring your book up so that the people that are watching the video right now and watching the replay later, they can see the cover of the book, so they know what book to go and get.
Okay.
So it's kind of like you described it, John, like the sunset and the clouds opening up. So how did you come up with the colors of the cover?
Well, I went down to the beach and I had my wife take pictures of me with my arms outstretched, and I was going to do a silhouette like that. And I sent it off to my editor, and he said, "I'm not sure what you're doing there." I said,
I'm flying.
I'm fishing. I don't know what I'm. I'm a lightning rod. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was kind of a cool image. He goes, "Yeah, it's cool, but it doesn't work." I said, "Okay." So he said, based on your whole idea in the book, why don't we do something with the sunset and some nice storm clouds above and the ocean without you there fishing? So I said, no, let me see what you come up with. And he came up with this cover, and I went, wow, that's powerful.
I like the color flow because
Yeah.
it's kind of heavy on top. Like the clouds are a little dark blue, then they soften up to like a lighter gray, bluish, and then it kind of gives you like a. And those are my two favorite colors too. So blue and orange are my favorite colors. So I just kind of love the cover right for the colors. So.
Well, the editor, his name is David Lewis, by the way, another brilliant writer, started playing with the font too. He said, I want to do a big font and a little more. And I said, isn't that going to look weird? And he said, well, take a look and you tell me. And I took a look. I said, I think that's great. I mean, everything that he's really good at design. So I said, let's just go with it.
So we have some questions that came in about the book that I want to get out to you tonight,
Great.
John. I want to dig into them, and then we're going to do some lightning bolt questions and all that. Get some fun in here. But we're going to start off with what moment in your life first inspired you when the rain stopped?
Oof. There were a lot of moments, but one memorable moment was when I moved to Colorado. I was living at one of the last houses before it turned into the national forest. So I was pretty far out in the mountains. And my neighbor's name was Mark O'Brien, passed away many, many years ago. And we called him OB. And he and I were talking one night in front of the fire. And he said, I get something behind you. Now, I had no idea how spiritual this man was. I said, what do you mean behind me? He goes, there's a story in there that you're not telling me. I said, what do you mean? He says, what happened to you? I said, really? You're going to make me go through this? He goes, oh, yeah. So I told him, and he said, good. Do you know how to play chess? I said, no, why? He said, we're going to learn. It's kind of an odd twist, but okay. And so we started learning to play chess, and he literally taught me life's lessons on the chessboard. And how that came about was this, is that he said, for every move your partner makes, you have to look at what effect it's going to have on you. And do you make a counter move? Do you take the piece? Or do you set something up for later to do the trap? And I thought, wow, that's an interesting concept in life. And so eventually one night I beat him, and I was running around the house, jumping up and down like that. And I said, did you let me beat you? He said, hell no, I wouldn't do that. So I was really happy as hell. And that was a pretty monumental moment. And then he started teaching me how to meditate. And something just started, I don't know, lightening up. I felt alive. Some chains were starting to come off. He encouraged more conversation with my mother. And then when I got to talk to her about that moment that traumatized me, she broke out crying and said, no, you misread the whole thing. I turned around. Well, I could tell you the short story about it if you want. All right. So she put me on the train at 12. Train starts pulling out. She turns away and walks away. And I thought, she hates me. She's abandoning me. And later when I told her that, when she started crying, she said, no, honey, you don't understand. I was crying because I was putting my 12-year-old son on a train, my baby. And I cried every single night. And then I started crying, and then we hugged each other. I said, I am so sorry for being an asshole my whole life to you. She goes, yeah, you deserved it. So,
As a mom, John, I always turned away from my kids too, so they didn't see me cry. Because you've got to be that tough cookie, right? You got to be that strength for them, and
yeah.
it's hard. Mom to mom, like when you shared that story to me about your mom and that, I was just like, I got it. I understood where she was coming from.
Yeah.
And I got that same reaction from my children. Oh, my mom, what, like, she doesn't love me. She doesn't, you know, you feel that abandonment because you see that back turn, right? So the back turned is, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's scary. I mean, as a young kid, no matter what the trauma is, I mean, when you feel abandoned, that sends you down a bad rabbit hole.
absolutely. John, what does the rain symbolize for you personally?
Cleanliness, a cleansing. It's I mean, we all feel it after rain. Things smell better. It just feels fresh. That's really the symbol for me.
And when you say when the rain stops, what does that moment look like emotionally?
Emotionally, when the rain stops, is the moment you can take control of your life. Because if you can stop the pain coming into your heart, you can also bring it out and bring in sunshine. And once you have the sunshine, you can share it with others.
Was this story more healing to write or harder to release?
I think it was incredibly difficult to write this story because, as you pointed out, it was very raw, and I had to be bludgeoningly honest about it, even to the point where some things were embarrassing for me to even write about. But I said, can't do that. You got to be honest straight through. Releasing it was almost more cathartic than painful because I'm sitting there going, what if everyone hates it? And then I thought, did you write it for people to love it or hate it? Or why did you write this thing? And I thought, all right, I mean, if I can help one person prevent themselves from killing themselves, I'll feel like I wrote a bestseller. And so once I heard that in my head, I said, okay, that's the right attitude. Hit the release button and off we went.
Well, that's it, right? When we're sharing our personal stories and we get really raw and naked, right? With the truths with ourselves, then we have to take that opinion of somebody else if they're going to like it or not, right? Are we writing to heal or are we writing just to get a story out there?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, they'll tell me, Miss Liz, why did you write your story? I didn't write it to make awards or anything. I wrote it to heal. I wrote it to release. Did it re-traumatize me? Absolutely, 100%. But it actually helped me too, because being re-traumatized sometimes helps us heal the pieces that we haven't healed yet.
Well, I think also being re-traumatized, you can actually look at it and work yourself through it in a way you couldn't when you first got traumatized. So the process, you've developed tools in order to deal with it. And so when it comes up, you can say, okay, let's put the brakes on here. It's not what you're thinking. You're just having a really bad day, and don't turn it into a mental health trauma event. Now, if it goes on for a few days, you got a trauma event, you need to go see a therapist. But if you wake up just all confused and shitty and all that, accept it, because we all have our turn in the barrel. It doesn't mean you've jumped off the cliff or that you're never going to come back from it. It just means you're having a bad day, and that's okay.
And John, what was the deepest part of your own story that was hard to release into the book?
Hard to release the book?
Like to write, like what part of your story was the hardest to write in the book? Because there's a lot of hard stuff in that book.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I guess the admission that I had given up so much and that I was bullied and hated so much that I just wanted to kill myself. I think that was the hardest thing to come to grips with. Is I was bullied. Military school, I had brooms broken over my back. I was a complete mess there, and I thought going to my next school everything would be fine, and it was just as bad. So that's when I said I'm done, and I guess that was the hardest part, is to come to grips with that. And yeah, sometimes I even think about that and say, how did I get to that place?
And then when you see it and you're like, I got over it. But at that moment, you're like, how do I get through this?
Yeah. Yeah.
No. John, I have a lot of male listeners out there that are starting to open up and share their stories because of stories like yours, because you've opened up and shared yours. What have you gotten back from males that have read your story?
Some wonderful feedback. I mean, on a lot of the social media, I had one veteran write me, said, I suffer a lot from PTSD. I read your book. And believe it or not, it really helped me. And so we had a little exchange. I said, look, here's my number, here's my email. You ever need to talk, I'm here for you. A woman called me and said, do you mind if I talk to you? I said, no, not at all. She goes, well, what do you charge? I said, how about we don't worry about money and we just talk? And she goes, really? An hour and a half later, she was laughing and having a good time. And she said, I feel like you channeled everything my mother would have told me because she had passed away. And I said, wow, that's a heck of a compliment. I hope I helped. And she goes, you have no idea what you just did for me. So that kind of feedback. A lot of the males that reached out were very complimentary in saying, I'm so happy that somebody's able as a male to express themselves. And I really am encouraged to do the same thing now. And I think it's healthy because males in my group, my age group and all that, grew up with, you don't cry. You just don't cry. You're a man. I mean, I fell off the jungle gym once and died. My mother picked me up, brushed me off, smacked me upside the head and said, get going. That's the kind of environment we grew in, not like, oh, you poor baby, let me hold you. Does it feel better? Get up and go.
What, you got a scratch? Throw some sand on that and go.
Suck it up, pal. So we didn't have the luxury of saying, but mom, I feel real bad. Yeah, sure. It's just the time. Now it's different now because we're all much more cognizant of mental health and the process of traumas and all that. So parenting in today's world from the 1950s to today is miles apart. So I think that men are starting to understand that showing emotion is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. That the caveat here is you don't fall into your weakness and you don't fall into expressing your feelings to people who are just going to criticize or tease you about it. You have to know the audience you're playing to. Sometimes I'll look at a group and they start talking about something and I realize this is not the group I want to open up to. Not that they're bad people, it's just not the audience. And so they say, so how was your life? It's, whose life is whose life? It goes, it comes. What are you going to do? And they all say, yeah, we're the same thing. Just have a beer and everything's fine. It's, yeah. And I go home thinking, get me away from that.
That is one pot I don't want to be in.
No, but I think what it speaks to, Liz, is learning that you have boundaries and it's okay to implement them to protect yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to be an isolationist and all that, but you learn tools and you recognize quickly, this is a boundary. I'm not letting anyone cross. And I've sat down with people who've said stuff and said, can we talk to you outside for a minute? So yeah, sure. And I said, what you said in there was really inappropriate. And I'm not going to put up with it. So if you want to be my friend, we got to clear this shit up right now because I'm not going to do it. And 9 times out of 10, they go, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. I said, cool. So we're good. Let's not do that again. Okay. And if I do it to you, if you're going to be my friend, we have to have an open communication and be honest with each other. And that's what starts good friendships.
John, did you have a fear of sharing your story because of the field that you're working in?
I don't think so. No, because there are a lot of nutty people in my business. So, it's, I didn't think it would affect my business at all because as a director or the writer or producer, even, I'm there to help people. I'm there to create something. I'm not there to do mental health exercises. Although I think in my experience as a mental health advocate, it's helped me actually in the business because I can see somebody having a really bad day and a hard time. And, as somebody in the position of power, they call it director, writer, producer. If you go over and you say, hey, can I talk to you? They get nervous right away. What is this coming to? I said, you seem like you're having a bad day. Everything okay at home and stuff? And you can just see their shoulders go like this. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to bring my shit to the set. XYZ happened and I'm just trying to figure it out. And I said, why don't you take 15 minutes, go use my office if you want, call your wife and have a chat and get this out of your head because it's not helping any of us. And I read it. And he looked at me and goes, are you serious? I said, yeah, come with me. So I put him in the office, closed the door, said, everyone leave this guy alone. Put a sign, do not disturb. And he came back. You could just see the air just filled. And boy, was he working hard. And at the end of the day, came up and he thanked me for it.
we're all human beings, right? And we all suffer. And
Yeah.
and that's what I really enjoyed about our conversation when we first met, right? Everybody was like, "Oh, you got John Callis. He's made all these movies." Da, 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 da. And I was like, "Whoa, he's a person.
Yeah.
Let's recognize that you're a person. There's titles. Yes, there's titles. But like you said, like you go and you speak to somebody on set and they're like, "Oh, he's coming. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
But person to person, heart to heart. And that's why we became family over the last couple of years, is because it's heart to heart. It's not title to title. It's not like podcaster against director here. It's like we could have a battle on TikTok, you know. But you have become a friend to me. You have become family, John, because of that relationship that we built together. You
I
know.
feel the same way, Liz.
Um, I'm going to try and keep my posture here. No tears. But I really do appreciate the time that we have had together, John. You know,
Me too.
I want to get into, if healing had a sound, what would it be, John, for you?
If I had a sound,
If it had a sound. I like that. Now, for all the listeners out there, take that moment to pause and listen to John's sound of healing. Because, sometimes we overthink stuff. And sometimes just a little sound, the sound of rain, the sound of humming, the sound of, just breathing. We got to get that out there. Like I said, it's going to be a heart to heart tea that we're having tonight. So it's going to be a little weird, a little down some rabbit holes in that. But I just wanted to know how your healing sound sounded, because we all have
well,
a different sound.
that healing sound is this. Well, yeah, I probably didn't do it right, but it's the tuning fork of the universe. What it makes a sound to me.
Oh, I've never thought of the tuning fork as healing. Huh. That's got to be a director thing, right?
More of a writer thing, I think.
A writer thing.
My wife sometimes says to me, she goes, "I'd like to know where your mind wanders off the reservation, where you come up with these ideas." No idea, honey.
And what do you drink from when life feels heavy for you, John?
Everything I can get my hands on. Actually, all kidding aside, if I'm in a space where life has gotten to me, the last thing I do is go have a drink. I'll get a glass of water or something until I'm stable again. And once I'm there, then I'll have a cocktail or a wine or something. But I make it a point to monitor myself. And every so often, I stop drinking for 30 days. And my wife said, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Because I want to know that I'm in control of it and it never will get in control of me." It's just, she says, "Well, do you feel you have a problem?" I said, "No, not at all. But it doesn't mean you can't control it. And just clean your body out once in a while. The liver could take a break." And look, I don't get sloshy drunk either, but I think it's just healthy if there's a potential for any addiction to keep an eye on it and make sure you're managing it.
I like that. I like, managing it. The reason that I brought the drink up, John, is because in our first tea time, we talked about margaritas. And as you guys can see in John's picture, he has lemons. We're going to get into the lemons. Now we're going to dig into the lemons. But margaritas are good with lemons. Like, come on, guys. So, John, let's talk about lemons and margaritas for a bit.
Okay.
So, do you have a good recipe for margaritas out there?
I do. You take a good jigger of tequila. Make it a decent tequila, not the high-end stuff, because you're not going to taste it. Then you put a half a shot of Grand Marnier in it. Squeeze in a lime, put in some mix, and stir it up, and knock yourself out.
Yeah, because me and John, one day we're going to have margaritas together.
Absolutely. But we got to make sure we have an Uber standing by.
Right? Now I want to get into the lemons, because we got into the margaritas. Let's get into the lemons. Those lemons that you're holding, you grow them, correct?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about the lemons. How did you start growing lemons?
A friend of mine, Francois, French guy, obviously, was moving back to France, which he came back here again, and he had a lemon tree about that tall. He said, "You want it?" What the hell am I going to do with a lemon tree? He goes, "I don't know. You want it? I'm going to get rid of it." I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." So I went in the backyard and I'm looking around and said, "Lemon tree, where do you want to go?" I said, "Right there." I said, "Yeah." So I planted it and I forgot about it. Yes, it's a tree, right? Next thing I know, I see these lemons starting. Well, that's pretty cool. And then more lemons. And then they kept getting bigger. And before long, they looked like grapefruits. I went, what did this guy do to this tree? What in God's name was he feeding? I call Francois, what the heck? He goes, what's what? The picture sent. He goes, those are my lemons. I said, no, they're my lemons. You gave them to me. Remember that?
You're not getting your lemons back.
That's a done deal. And so friends would come over in the middle of winter and stuff, said, can I have a couple of lemons? I said, you can go to the tree. I'm not. Here's the clippers. Take what you want, because it's just filled with them. But come springtime and with that picture, some of the lemons literally get this big. I mean, they're huge. And some of them have like little fingers on them. Some of them are picking their nose, whatever. But I mean, they're just, and you get really a lot of juicy lemon out of it. It got to the point where my wife and I spent a couple hours in the kitchen with a machine and got all the lemon juice and put them in ice trays, the little squares, and stuck them in the freezer. So if I wanted lemon water, I'd take a cube, stick it in the water, and let it melt. And I had beautiful water, lemon water.
There you go. See, lemon legacy.
Yeah, well, I'm Greek, so Greeks love lemon on everything.
Because you also gave me in our first tea time a recipe for lemon soup.
Avgo lemino.
I am too scared to make that soup, John, because I'm scared to curdle it, because you said I have to have it at a right temperature, and I'm just like, oh, I'm not sure.
Okay, the right temperature just means it can't be hot. If you can touch the pot pretty easily, then you've got the right thing, and just go slowly and pour it, not curdle it, pour it.
Curdle that soup.
Curdle it, and then you'll call me screaming. You told me to do it this way. Sometime we can FaceTime each other, and I'll put you in the kitchen with me, and we'll just go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be making lemon soup together. Well, what did you call it?
Avgo lemino. It's a Greek name.
Lemino.
Avgo.
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 Avdo.
Avgo.
Avgo.
Lemon.
Lemon.
Oh. Avgo lemino.
Avgo lemino.
Close enough.
Oh, and that's what it's all about, right? Is making legacies through lemons. And that's why I really put that on as your tagline for the story, because I wanted to bring some humor into the story, because when the rain stops, it's a heavy story, but it's also a beautiful story. And I wanted to bring the lemons in because those were the lemons you were given as a child, and you made lemonade out of them. You grew the tree and it blossomed. So that's where all the lemons all just plant together. Miss Liz just plants seeds all over in a different way. So,
yep.
So John, how do you bless the past without living it?
Well, I think you have to recognize the past is not perfect. You made mistakes. You've had wins. You've had losses. And I think you have to look at all that and say, I have a choice. I can either bless it and understand that those experiences are what led me to who I am today. And I need to bless it and let it go because it's in the past. There's nothing I can do unless I need to make amends or call a friend and say, hey, I'm really sorry. I said this to you. I really didn't mean it. I was mad, whatever. But apart from that, you need to let it go and bless it. And if you don't mind, I'll share a quick story about that. A couple of years ago, we lost a 27-year friendship because of some issues that were inappropriate, we'll call it. And my wife and I were sitting there, and she and I were both pretty upset about it because we had a really close relationship with these people. And I said to her one night, I've been thinking about this, honey. And she goes, yeah. And I said, I'm not going to piss on the last 27 years. She goes, I don't understand. I said, I am going to look back and remember all the fun we had traveling all over the world with these people, dinners and parties and births. And we had Christmas together and Thanksgiving. Why should we sour that? Sometimes life just says there's a road, and sometimes the road ends and it's time to switch to another road and path. And she goes, I liked it. you think we can do that? I said, I don't think it's going to be easy because of our attachment to what we had, but it's an opportunity to kind of push the reset button and start over. And so one night, a year and a half later, we were in a restaurant, and this couple was sitting next to us. And I just happened to look over and said, "What are you eating?" And he told me. I said, "Can I have a bite?" And he looked at me and goes, "Yeah, you want one?" And I said, "No, I'm just kidding." And he and his wife and my wife and I started a conversation. Since then, we've had dinners together. They invited us out to their home in Arizona, which we've been to. Lovely people. And we were driving home one night, and I said, "Remember that story I told you about not pissing on the past and doors would open and we start a new life?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "We just did. We're creating our new life." And we have two great kids. We have food on the table. We've got a roof over our head. We've got a lot to be grateful for. Let's bless the past, let it go, and enjoy the future, or the present, sorry.
See, and that kind of goes into the tea that you gave me. And I seen when I was reading it, you were like, did I give her that? So you gave me bless the past and let it go, accept life's gift. And that's exactly what you just shared with us, John.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, if you ever ask the question, what is life about? For me, I just think about it and say, it's a gift. Nobody can answer the question, so accept the gift and enjoy the hell out of it. Don't hurt anyone. Don't be a jerk, and enjoy it.
I like that. See, John's straightforward. Don't be a jerk. I had a guest on yesterday, Brad Anderson, and he said that the same thing. Don't be a jerk. Like, you're driving home in the car. Everybody's got something going on. Just, don't make it harder for other people.
Or you can help me write my new book called "I'm Okay, You're an Asshole."
Is that coming out anytime soon there, John?
No, I'm kidding.
You just never know.
I said that to Linda, my wife. I said, "Yeah, I'm going to write this book." And she looked, she goes, "You're not really, are you?" I said, "No, but it sounds fun, doesn't it?" She goes, "Yeah, I can understand it, but no."
You might get a lot of good readers on that one.
It probably will.
John, as a returning guest and a man who has lived so many creative lives, what would you say to someone standing at their own crossroads between holding on and letting go?
Creatively or just in life?
In life. Just in life. Life is complicated.
It can be. Holding on and letting go. Well, I think you first have to acknowledge what it is the situation is that you're holding on or letting go of. If it's life-threatening, you need to get help right away. If it's, do I hold on to this friendship or let it go? You have to ask yourself, is it enriching my life or is it causing me issues? And if it's causing you pain and suffering, you got to let it go. For example, many years ago, we had this group, but there were a couple of people in it that every time we wanted to do anything, it got so complicated and so confusing. And it was always major issues and all that. And we just stopped seeing them. And one day we looked and said, our life's so much more calm without this garbage in our life. And so we made a decision to let it go, even though there wasn't any single thing you could point to and say, this is what broke it up. It was just the ambiance of the personality sucking the air out of the room. And we didn't want to go with that air. So we said, we got to let it go. If you want to talk about holding on, if you're a good friend, the first conversations you should have with a friend, which I've had with mine, is if ever there's anything that we say or feel about each other, do not go to somebody else. The only two people that can work it out is you and me. So call me or I'll call you. And we can even start out by saying, this is one of those uncomfortable conversations we need to have. Please listen. I don't mean disrespect. And a friend of mine did that to me about 6 months ago. And I listened to her and she goes, what do you think? I said, I'm totally okay with that. I'm happy to do that for you. And she goes, you're so easy to talk to. I said, well, so are you, because we're friends and you told me how you felt. And the last thing I want to do is hurt your feelings in any way, shape, or form. So we will stop with that and we'll go on to something else. And that's what builds a really solid friendship and one you can trust. Because if you're honest with each other, then you can feel more vulnerable and never feel like they're going to hurt you.
Absolutely. And when you feel heard, the friendship grows and you feel safe.
Exactly.
John, What age was it when you first felt safe?
About 2 hours ago. Let's see. When was I
Before it came to you, Liz.
the minute we started talking, I felt safe. um, I guess the transition was when I was around 19, living in Colorado, because I had gotten out of the muck and murk of all of the private school, military school, all of the bullying and all that. And I was in a mountain town where people were just like filled with love and peace and happiness, and the whole hippie movement was in full bloom, and I just fit in like a glove. And it just, I think that was a cathartic moment.
And John, what life lessons did your story teach you after sharing it?
Not to be afraid of life, not to be afraid of life, and take it on with love. Take it on and say, I want to live my life. And when I die, I hope I've made a difference, even if it's in the slightest putting a seed in the ground and letting the next generation go. I don't want to live my life where I have any regrets, which I don't. I don't want to live my life dying thinking, geez, I could have been a better person. Um, I'm not Gandhi, so I'm not going to be able to cure the world in any way that way. But it's a gift, and I just don't want to ruin it.
And John, how do you stay grounded when sharing heavy material like this?
Just by being honest. I mean, if I was uncomfortable with being honest, we couldn't have these kind of conversations. Also, a friend of mine who is a world-class acupuncturist, another friend died, said to me, anytime you're not feeling grounded, go outside and there's a rebar near your house where the electricity, for lightning and stuff. He said, take your hands and hold it for about a minute. I said, why? Because if it can ground out lightning, it can ground you out, because all you are is an electrical current. And I thought, okay, he's smoking too much weed, but I'm going to try it.
He's smoking the good stuff.
He's smoking the good shit. I want some. So one day I was like,
I don't smoke the dizzies. It's in my intro.
we'll cut that part out. Don't worry. So one day I was like really nuts, and I thought, okay, Roger. And I went outside and I grabbed hold of it and I said, okay. I closed my eyes and I just started breathing. And about a minute later, I opened my eyes and I thought, wow, that actually worked. So I was good.
John, how has dark humor saved you?
How is it?
How has it saved you?
How has it saved me?
Yeah.
I guess until you get to know me, I present a very lighthearted, and I've got some dark humor for sure, no question about it. But I really enjoy.
Only his good friends know that side.
I really enjoy making people laugh. I mean, I can take an innocent comment and flip it around, and they'll just say, "That's hysterical," And my friend from England who comes and stays with us says, we got to write a show, you and I, because every time I say anything, you flip it around and it's hysterical. So, and it goes dark, of course, between the two of us. As I get to know somebody, they see different layers in me, and they go, oh, I never realized about you. I said, well, there's a lot you haven't realized. And they said, why not? I said, because you don't ask. They said, oh. I mean, a lot of my friends for 10 years had no idea the depth of what I did in the film business, because I just don't walk around saying, hey, look what I did. And today I did it, and they would talk about their businesses and everything. I said, that's cool. And I'd ask questions, but never said anything about it. And one night, friend said, I see all these little awards and shit around your house. What do you exactly? How much do you do? I said, well, it's a little website called johncallis.com. Go visit it. And he'd call, he goes, holy crap, you've done a lot of work. Why didn't you ever say anything? I said, why didn't you ever ask? He says, well, I figured you would say something. I said, what am I supposed to say? Hey, I'm really good at this. It's just not my style. It's just not who I am.
Well, I think a lot of people assume that that's the character you should have, right? Because you're in that industry. A lot of people think that the entertainment industry has a lot of ego and a lot of, look at my awards, look what I've done with. Where a lot of entertainers that I've met and interviewed are more to the side. They're like, oh, well, if you really wanted to know, just ask about it. Like, I'm not going to tell you that I did 200 movies and 300 commercials. And when you go to johncallis.com, you see the work that John has done. And some of them even surprised me. Like, I was a Bobby's World fan when I was a little girl. And when I found out that you did Bobby's World, I was just like, oh, look at that. The universe brought us together.
Yeah. I have a cell from the show of Bobby with his finger up his nose. Every time I need a laugh, I pull it out and I put, okay, thanks. I needed that.
What else has stand out for you in the film business that you've worked on over the 50 years, John?
Well, lots of experience, but I guess for me, the gratitude that I came into the business knowing absolutely no one. I had no nepotism. And I managed to break into a very difficult business that I thought was going to break me. And I just refused to go down. I just kept going. And I got really creative with trying to get into companies. For example, I went down to Chinatown and I brought a stack of resumes. And I said, can you make big fortune cookie? He goes, yeah, what do you want? I said, I folded up my resume. I said, I want you to put this inside a cookie. He goes, oh, big cookie. I said, yeah, big cookie. He says, how many you want? I said, 100. He goes, okay. He gave me a price. He said, come back next Tuesday. So I came back to a big box with these giant cookies, fortune cookies. So I would send them out in boxes. Says, you know, hire John Callis, your toe fall off. And they would open the cookie and there's my resume, because people were like cutting dolls and making in different colors and all that. And I said, I got to stand out. So that started getting me work. Then I called one company and I said, can I speak to Kay? And Kay's the executive producer of this company, or was. I said, can I ask what it's regarding? Everyone says, well, I want to do it. And they all say she's too busy. I said, well, I'd like to do my dancing bear routine for her. And there's a pause and she goes, a what? I said, dancing bear routine. Hold on a minute. And so Kay would get on laughing. She goes, all right, I'll bite. What's the dancing bear routine? I said, well, everyone's trying to get in to talk to you, I imagine. And I don't want to waste your time. So I thought if I could come down and do my shtick and see if you like me, we can go from there. She goes, come on down. I want to meet you. You sound funny. So I went down and she interviewed me. She goes, we got a commercial next week. I'd like to hook you up with the director. You'd be his assistant director. Is that okay? I said, sure. And she goes, what's your rate? I said, what do you got in the budget? She goes, oh, you one of those, huh? I said, what do you mean one of those? She goes, you'll take what I've got? I said, well, I'm not going to bid against myself if that's what you're asking. And she says, I like you already. So after the show, after the commercial, I went up to her and said, thank you very much. I really appreciate the work. Keep me in mind. She goes, well, you didn't like working with us? I said, yeah, I do. Why? She goes, well, we got another job next week. I said, great. I'd love it. She calls me the next day. Said, Lee doesn't want you as an AD. I said, okay, fair enough. I'll move on. She goes, no. You misunderstand. He wants you as his producer. I said, what? Now, I said, okay, sure. I did one job with him and wound up spending every day for 3 years with him. He didn't want to let go of me because I was always bringing stuff in under budget. I would give him whatever he needed. I made sure everything was tight. I was really good at producing, but I don't like it. It's just not what I like. And it just kind of experienced that and then transitioned into the trailers that I did. And so I was doing those with a company, for my company. So I co-directed and produced them as well. So I guess the gratitude of having those opportunities and turning them into further opportunities was a real blessing.
And some of the celebrities that you've worked with, John, which ones stand out to you the most?
Every one of them, if you saw them in public and you weren't in the business, you'd be kind of gobsmacked, like, oh God, really? Mel Brooks, Mel Gibson, De Niro, who else? Oh my God, the Rolling Stones, and you'd lose your mind, They came in and were there to do a job. And I would introduce myself, they'd introduce themselves, and I'd bring them to the wardrobe and all that. Say, you need some coffee or anything? They say, oh, that'd be really nice, thanks. I said, you hungry? Because we got some nice fruit. I said, I'll wander over the craft service and take a look. And they treated the crew really nicely. I had, in my 50 years, one actor that came in, and I don't want to mention his name, but he was like, and I'm the better actor than him. And he was throwing a shit fit all over the place. And my whole crew looked at me and said, you got your work cut out for you, pal. I said, thanks, guys, for the support. So I said, I'll be back. So I go into the dressing room and I close the door and say, hey, can I talk to you? He goes, yeah, sure. I said, when you came in here and you started going off on this other actor and saying you were that, he says, yeah. I said, you're right. He went, what? I said, you're so much more talented than that schmuck. Come on, you got to be kidding me. Why would you even think of that? He says, yeah, that's true. I said, look at the films you've done. I named a couple. He goes, oh, you've seen them. I said, I've seen most of your work. He said, and what do you think? I said, I think you're really talented. He said, great. So how much time do I have? I said, how about 10 minutes? He goes, I'll get ready right away. I came out. I went, and he behaved himself the whole shoot.
But you gave him that time again, John.
Yeah.
The time matters. It's like the beginning of our conversation, where you had another person you worked with and you just gave them that 15 minutes. Go take 15 minutes because you're just ruining the environment. Take time and recharge yourself. Yeah. And that's what life is all about, right? Is recharging ourselves and getting it out there. With your book, When the Rain Stops, that's exactly what you did, John. When you shared your story, was you stopped, released, recharge, and reflect on how you overcame your journey. What message would you like to leave to the readers out there, and what do you hope they get from your book?
Well, I hope they get a more personalized message about their life and see it as a kind of a blueprint to think about some of the experiences I had and compare it to some of the experiences they have, and understand that my pain and trauma is no better or worse than their pain and trauma, because you can't measure pain and trauma on a scale like, well, he's got a 7, you're only a 5. That a 3 is just as heavy as a 10 because it's personal. So by reading the book, I'm hoping that the audience will understand what they're going through, maybe realize that let's not waste any more time hating our mother or hating a relative or something. Let's get it on the table, get it resolved, and spend the rest of my life love instead of hate and frustration. And I mean, I can't tell you how many Thanksgivings and Christmases I didn't go back east to my family because I basically thought they hated me. And I have such, not a regret, but a wish that I had been a little bit more mature and less angry. And I told my mother, and she goes, I knew you were angry. I couldn't do anything about it because it was, you had to figure it out. She said, there was nothing I can do. And believe me, you were always missed. We wanted you here desperately. And so one Christmas she called, she goes, how you doing? I said, great, Mom. I'm doing great. She goes, so what are you having for dinner? I said, well, I got a steak, a baked potato, and a carrot going, the usual stuff. She paused, she goes, you're starving, aren't you? I said, no. And I'm looking at a pot of rice, like 20 days in of just rice because I had no more money. And she goes, would it be okay if I sent you money? And I said, no, don't send me a dime, because I was stubborn. So she sent me $500 anyway. And I was about to rip up the check. I said, what are you doing? You're freaking starving. I went down to the grocery store and bought everything I could that would stay for at least a month, canned stuff and all that. And I bought a fat steak. I thought I was going to vomit after eating the thing, but it just woke me up that I needed to find my own way.
And that's what we have to do with our storms. We got to find our way.
Yeah. It's not easy. Look, I'm trying to keep this light without getting to the point where I'm going to start crying. But these are serious issues that we're all dealing with. I'm very proud that men are finally starting to come out and talk about it, because the more we can support each other, the better we are. And we can find ways to be better husbands and better people. And to be a better husband. I mean, my wife and I Linda and I talked about this on the way home, driving in the car. And I said, Linda, without you, I would never have been the person I am. And I said, a lot of women that I talk to say, oh, God, I wish there were men like you around when, that are free. I said, no, you misunderstand something. If you had met me before I was married for 34 years, you wouldn't even talk to me. And I said, what do you mean? I said, I was the roughest stone you could ever possibly imagine. And when I got together with my wife, she helped me to be the man I am today. Not by training me or anything, but by loving me and being able to make me feel that I had a friend that I could talk to. And sometimes when we get an argument, I say, put the wife aside for a minute, please. I really need to talk to my friend. And so she'll drop and say, okay, what do you need to talk to your friend about? I said, my wife's being a real bitch. She goes, "That's not a good start."
Do I
Could
want
it
to
be
be the
that,
friend right now?
she said, couldn't be that the husband was a jerk, right? And that's what starts us laughing. So because of that safety, we could say stupid stuff like that, not mean it, and break the tension of the moment so that we could talk and say, okay, I would say, I'm really sorry, honey. I owe you an apology. I I was just really frustrated. It had nothing to do with you. This is what happened. She goes, why didn't you just tell me then? I said, I don't know. I was just too frustrated to even get it out. She goes, well, do you feel better now? I said, yeah, I do. And she helped me see some things, about looking at somebody who maybe said something to me, and you never know, that maybe their dog died, maybe their mother's sick. You don't know what the story is of the person. So don't be quick to judge them. And
Yeah.
it helped. It helped a lot. I give her
It,
a lot of credit.
it is true because I watched a movie the other night. James Hergott, who was on Tea Time, made a movie called Supercars Spin or Sin, I think. Yeah, Sins. And two of the characters right away was like, oh, you guys are real assholes. Like, what is wrong with you? And then as the story got in, they were covering a lot of pain. And I was like, you just never know how people are dealing with pain. Don't be so fast to judge that book. And then my daughter came and she was and I said, sweetheart, we're not judging covers here. We don't know what the chapters are inside that book.
There you
Everyone's
go.
got something, but that story really opened up my eyes because I was sitting there on the couch. And I was like, you jerk, like, like, why are you being an ass and all that stuff. And then the story got into it a little deeper. And I was just like, oh, okay. Pain covers a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's billions of people on the planet. There's got to be people that resonate with you. Don't be afraid to find them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John, I want to thank you for joining me on Tea Time and being my golden heart and sitting down and sharing about your book again. For everybody that wants to reach John, if you could just spell out your website for the audio listeners out there, and then I'll do a closing summary.
Okay, it's John, John, Callis. That's like the city Dallas, but with a C instead of a D, johncallis.com. Or Maria Callis, but if you think I'm related, if you heard me sing, you'd know the answer to that.
We'd have to get you to sing one time there, John.
Nope, the humming was enough.
You got the hum out of me, girl.
Got the hum out of me. Hey, Liz, I just want to thank you for all that you do for people out there and all that you bring to the table, men and women alike, in the spirit of love and helping people grow. And I love you for that. And thank you for making me part of your family.
Well, thank you, John, for being part of my family, because I need a good family out there. No tears.
Okay. Yeah, I was starting to feel it myself. I'm glad you said that.
What a moving and meaningful tea time this has been. John, thank you for sharing truth and linger long after the conversation ends. You reminded us that creativity can carry healing and that integrity is the quiet strength behind every great story. Today's Tea Time whispers a powerful truth. It is okay to bless the past without allowing it to define us. It is brave to lay down what weighs the soul down. It is healing to step forward when your heart feels heavy. To everyone watching, may you leave the space lighter, clearer, and kinder towards yourself. Your story is unfolding, and tomorrow still holds beauty waiting to meet you. Until our next gathering, keep choosing hope when the clouds roll in. And I'll see everybody next week, and we'll do this all over again.